Good day, viewers. It is a season of Lent. Lent is a time of fasting, penance, and alms giving. With me in the studio are three young Catholics. On my right, Kennedy Asogwa. On my left, Sunday Kitiga. And the extreme left, Samuel Adendo. We are looking at the theme fasting. I will begin with Sunday Kitiga to discuss, to begin a discussion on fasting. Welcome, Sunday Kitiga. What is
Thank you.
fasting for you?
Fasting is derived from a Middle English origin, fasting, meaning to abstain from food. We know that different religions have their own different teaching about fasting and the way they practice their piety. Example, Jesus has his own a teaching on fasting which we can find in the Holy Bible. Muhammad, the founder of Islam, has his own teaching about fasting, which we can find in the Quran. Confucius also is teaching in the Anaklet, and also Guru Nanak in his teaching in the Nilkantha, the founder of Sikhism. And based on Christian biblical scripture, fasting we can see in the second book of Samuel, chapter 12, verse 13, David fasted on his sins after he commit adultery, which we can see we can fast on our sin. That means contrition, asking God for forgiveness of our sin. And finally, in the book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 5, we can see Esther proclaim a fast through Mordecai, her uncle, that the whole Israelite should fast so that God will liberate them. That is fasting through petition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I take that line as very important. We should fast not because of the situation we find ourselves, but for our love for God. My next question goes to Kennedy and Togwa. You've heard from Sunday Kitiga giving us a historical exposure on fasting. For you, what is fasting?
Okay, thank you very much. So I have heard what he has to say. And looking at our country now, we can see that things are very hard. I'm talking about fasting. For our fasting this season of Lent to make sense, we have to fall back to the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, wherein Isaiah tells us that the right fasting is not denying ourselves of food, but it is a time wherein we give food to those who does not have, and we also give clothes to those who are naked. So during this time of Lent that things are very hard in our country, we can make it meaningful by sharing the things we have with those persons that do not have. And by doing so, the Lenten season of this year and this period that we are experiencing difficulties will become meaningful, and our Christian life will become enriched and nourished.
Thank you, Kennedy Asogwa. But you know that many of our viewers who are traditional Catholics would disagree with you that fasting does not necessarily mean abstaining from food. They would really watch this and say, no, I think fasting is also disciplining the body. We have heard from you. You've made a very vital point, and I think it's quite encouraging. Would like to hear from Samuel, who perhaps would have a more maybe a beautiful perspective to what the beautiful ideas Kennedy Asogwa and Sunday Kitiga have actually discussed here. So, what is fasting for you, Samuel Adindu?
Okay, thank you very much. Growing up, my dad will always ask us to fast every Saturday. That is from 6 to 12 in the afternoon. And so we've considered fasting to be abstaining from just meal. Well, I know as we advance in age, we understand the whole idea of fasting, even as a pillar of Lent. As Catholics, we are urged to fast during the season of Lent, just like Jesus Christ, who fasted for 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. So it is important to know that fasting is not just limited to food, but fasting from food is also necessary because it aids our alms giving. Because when we fast from food, the money we receive from that meal we refuse ourselves of the gift to the poor. And this economy in Nigeria is even the best time where we can carry out almsgiving, getting the money we kept from fasting and giving to the poor, because the economy in the country is really hard and it calls for us to have concern for the poor. As Pope John Paul II will say in the Vita Consecrata, special preference for the poor. And so this time around, you can fast from so many things, but this time I personally will urge Catholics to fast from food, get the money from the fasting, and offer it as a form of almsgiving to the poor, so that people out there would understand that yes, we are truly Catholics, and we, by depriving ourselves of the food and of pleasures and every other thing, can be like Christ, who fasted in the wilderness during the time of temptation. So that's just my own personal perspective, that this economy calls us to fast and to help those whom we think we are better than during the season of Lent. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel Adendo. Thank you, Sunday Kitiga, and very thank you to Kennedy Asogwa. Together we have looked at fasting, one of the pillars of Lent, as Samuel Adendo rightly mentioned, one of the pillars of Lent. In the next edition of this podcast, we will be looking at penance. And having discussed fasting, we have all agreed, today that fasting is not abstaining from food, but rather, drawing strength from, what we have abstained from, to give almsgiving, to render almsgiving, to give help to those who are in need. If we are fasting from food, it should be to help others. If we are doing penance, it should be to help others. In other words, this first pillar, forms the foundation for the remaining two pillars of Lent, penance and almsgiving. Do join us. The next edition of our podcast is going to be very, very interesting. And in fact, the debate is going to be tight and hot. See you in the next edition of our podcast. Do not forget to like, comment, and share. St. Paul Digital Mission. God bless you. See you soon.